Going to start the recording. It is 7 o'clock. We are starting on time, on the nose. So good evening, everyone. We're going to open up tonight's meeting of the Oakland Mills Village Board Community Association. Our first item of business is an administrative item, and that is to approve the minutes from the February 8th board meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I move.
I have a motion from Lynn. I saw a second hand go up from Bill, so I'll take Bill as the second. Okay, is there any discussion of those minutes? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, 0, Amy. Okay, next up is to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. And I will note that the agenda was amended between when we released it to the public last Thursday and what we're discussing tonight. I think Sandy sent out the update yesterday. Thank you, Sandy. And the amendment was to add to new business a couple of bills that have been introduced in the Maryland House of Delegates pertaining to HOAs and common ownership communities. And the reason we did that quick amendment and announced them is because these bills were introduced on February 10th, so 2 days after our board last met. And I believe the hearings on these bills and the opportunities to weigh in with written testimony are, is it March 1st? Am I getting that right? I don't have my calendar. March 1st. Alex is nodding. Okay. So basically this is the only scheduled meeting we had, from the time those bills were introduced to the time there's an opportunity to weigh in. So we quickly added them to the agenda. Thank you, Alex, for bringing them to Bill's attention and my attention this weekend. To everyone else, I apologize for the short notice, but short notice is all we got. So we crammed it into tonight's agenda just to make sure that, we're at least thinking about these, if not making a decision. And I'll have a little bit more on that as we get into the new business. So with that said, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended and then shared with the community yesterday? All right, I have a motion from Bill. I see Warren with a hand for a second. Any further discussion of the agenda? All right, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, 0. All right, we are underway. We'll start with resident remarks. If we have residents who would like to make remarks, please use the hand raise feature or just raise your hand to me on Zoom and I'll call you in the order I see you. Okay, I saw Alex and then I saw Paul and then I saw Phil. Was there anyone else? All right, Alex. Hang on 1 second. All right, can you unmute yourself there? I forgot you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
All right, you got 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction on the two bills, Jonathan. Delegate Marvin Holmes from Prince George's County has introduced those two bills. They're very beneficial to homeowners associations, condominiums, and their residents. And he's been an advocate for those associations for quite some time. House Bill 1060 is Residential Owners Bill of Rights. It's a much needed set of rights that serves as a foundation, actually, for more detailed statutes that actually implement those rights subsequently. Now, House Bill 1061 allows counties and cities to establish a fund if they so choose. So this bill actually simply authorizes counties and cities to set up a fund if they decide to do that, to help homeowners associations and condominiums repair and maintain their infrastructure, like roads and stormwater facilities. And this bill is really an outgrowth of all of the support that Bill, Ginny, you, Jonathan, and this village board has provided to me on this issue for the past several years. So thank you. Thank you for keeping me motivated and for us reaching this point. I've been serving this past year on a state task force led by Delegate Holmes. And these two bills came out of the work of that task force. So I've provided you some background information on both bills, and I believe you have copies of the actual bills. And I realize this board has had much more involvement in the infrastructure funding issue than the Bill of Rights. So I hope that this board will at least support House Bill 1061, and if you so choose, possibly even House Bill 1060 as well. I can make myself available for any answers of questions you may have once you discuss these two bills on your agenda. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Alex. Okay, I think the next person I had was Paul.
Good afternoon or good evening, all. I would like the OMCA to support both bills. The first one that I'd like to talk about is 1061. That addresses front and center the issue that Alex has been dealing with for a number of years. And actually, that's an issue right across the board with the older HOAs, condos, et cetera. I think it's a bill that's been long needed and gets government involved where they should be. It isn't on a total basis, but it's enough to get them going. The second bill I especially like, the Bill of Rights, and it's something that Bill and I have talked about for a number of years. And I was looking at the bill, and it's got a number of rights in it. The first one is the one that is needed in Columbia totally, and it would make all of us members of CA. The rest of it basically also would deal with more of a town hall decision-making process. And this state legislation would be needed in order to override CA's bylaws and whatever else they've got in the way of their own laws, because only state law can override what CA is doing. So I strongly urge you to support both of these. I think they're very well needed, and it would bring in a new day of governance for CA, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, and then I believe Phil was our third person. Is that right, Phil?
Yes, good evening. Yeah, the thing that I wanted to discuss tonight is, while I was out at the mailbox and happened to meet some of my neighbors, we started talking, and I realized very quickly that there was much concern about the spike in crime here in Columbia, and especially with shootings and murders that are quite close to where we live. One last year was about a block from here. And one of the things that we were discussing is the dearth of information that we receive about this spike in these types of crimes. Now, obviously we understand when it's under investigation, the police, we're not going to release much information. However, we are in fact experiencing quite a rise in shootings and, unfortunately murders. And we don't really know what is behind all of that. We know that around the country, there's been a spike in crime. But here we have to go to Nextdoor, the news feed from TOP or from WBAL, or later you'll get something from the Sun papers. But quite frankly, we really don't know what's going on. And I would ask, if you have better idea, but would the board consider on a timely basis of having our resource officers and also also Opal's office to send a representative to your meeting. And I'm sure you folks have some questions as well as members of the community. I know that we have, coffee with a cop, and I know they've tried to do things, but I think there's some real questions that need to be asked, and also where the whole community can, if they choose to, listen into what is going on. So I don't know. So I don't know what you folks think about that, but I wish you would consider it. I know you could do it as a separate meeting, but given it the gravity of a board meeting, I think it shows some seriousness on our part to deal with what's going on in our community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. We have and do those. We did one actually almost exactly 2 years ago, just before everything started shutting down for COVID. We had one at the other barn, and I think that was a separate meeting. And then we had one last year, I think after the shooting you referenced, the one that was fairly close to where you are, where the police came in, talked about things, gave some overall crime statistics. So, I certainly think we could do another one, because we seem to average about one of those a year. So, Sandy, if that's something you can look
Yes,
before. Now,
sure.
I know from the past, what the police often do is they'll come in and they'll roll out all the crime statistics, and they'll show these statistics indicating that, crime isn't so bad except for the big headline crimes, but they usually don't give much insight into what's driving the big headline crimes, unfortunately. So I can't guarantee that will be very satisfying, but we'll bring them in again and see what they have to say.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I always heard that, people would say, it's really dangerous here. And I thought, my office is in Baltimore. I mean, this is not a problem, but it's starting to be a problem here. I mean, we've lived here for almost 50 years, and maybe there was a murder or two over that whole time. And then all of a sudden, it's here. It was over on Cradle Rock. It was, everybody knows the deal. But I think it deserves a little more attention than we're getting. So
Okay,
I appreciate it if you'd set something up.
will do.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Phil. Anyone else for speak out? All right, then we are going to go right into new business, and our new business is House Bills 1060 and 1061. As Alex and Paul have already mentioned, 1060 effectively provides a Bill of Rights for members and residents of HOAs and common ownership communities. House Bill 1061 allows for counties or municipal jurisdictions to basically set up infrastructure funds to assist common ownership communities. Now, as I said before, these got introduced back on the 10th, so we didn't have them at our last meeting, didn't know when they were, if and when they were coming. And the hearing is going to be on March 1st, which is a week from tonight, which means, we need to talk about them tonight, and then there are a couple of things we can do. If we feel that we want to take a position on this, we could handle this the way we attempted to handle the bill that Delegate Terrassa talked to us about a couple of meetings ago, and try to schedule a second session between now and next Tuesday to discuss this again as old business. Time's a little bit tight for that, but it could be done. The other thing we could do is, remember that our board standards are just that. They're standards we agreed upon. So in an emergency situation, in a situation where there isn't time, we could always vote to, waive those standards at any time to address something if we think it's important to the community, and it's, more important to be expedient than to be what I would say overly deliberative and then run out of time to weigh in. And I don't know if that's the situation, but we certainly have that at our discretion. And just as an aside, one of the things Bill and I talked about this weekend, because this has come up about, I think, 3 or 4 times over the past year or so, when it comes to legislation being introduced either at the state or county level, or potentially being introduced. It appears that we don't necessarily have the luxury of that time to discuss it, meet again, and then have the opportunity to weigh in. So at some point, we might want to reevaluate that policy and see whether we want to put some kind of caveat or exception in there that would basically allow us to be more nimble in the best interest of our community, even though it may, may not allow us to have the time we normally have to deliberate, or the time we normally have to notify the community that it's being discussed once and it's being discussed again before we make a decision. And I think this is a good example. We could discuss this again at our first meeting in March, except the hearing will have happened and the testimony will have been turned in. With all that said, obviously we need to talk about it a bit tonight. Hopefully everyone saw my email yesterday and you were able to read the summaries as well as the bills themselves. I was able to take time to give them a read through. I know Bill did because we talked about it over the weekend. I was talking to Sandy as some of you came in. My take on the Bill of Rights from an OMCA perspective is this is already the way we operate. So, from an OMCA perspective, I don't know that the Bill of Rights would have much effect on the way we do business or the way we interact with residents of Oakland Mills Village. From a CA perspective, I can't comment on how CA would handle this, but from an OMCA perspective, I don't see much difference. I mean, if you just look at what Sandy has right now, the right to vote, secret ballot, all that fun stuff. I mean, we do all that. We do our business in open meetings, except when the Homeowners Act allows for us to go into closed session. We do our financials in open meeting. We don't do capital projects because we don't own any property. So, I think a lot of this is just more of the same way we do business for Oakland Mills. That was my take on that. My take on 1061 is it is what communities like Holly Court have been looking for. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that the funds will be there, but it at least enables counties and municipalities at their discretion to set up such funds and begin administering such funds. So it gives Howard County potentially more flexibility to do something like that. And we know there is some interest in Howard County when it comes to the HOA driveway issue. So this may further enable the county to do something about that. And I don't know if anyone from Dr. Jones's staff is read into this or knows how this intersects with what they've been emailing us about when it comes to the Holly Court situation. But I know, Ashley, you're here, so if you have anything on that, feel free to wave your hand at me and let me know, or maybe you're just absorbing all this as well. But that's my take. That's my very, very, very high level summary in case you haven't had a chance to read through these. Sandy had them up on the screen, but obviously we can't read them word for word. And now, Bill, I know this intersects well with what some of the issues you're discussing at the Housing Committee. So I didn't know if you wanted to say anything else as an introduction to these two bills before we have some discussion about them.
Yes, I'd like to, Jonathan. Thank you. From the housing perspective, the bill that provides financing avenues to HOAs to do repair, replacement of their private driveways, like in the case of Holly Court, this would be a big help in that direction. And we, by that I mean Jonathan, myself, Ginny, Sandy have been working with Alex and Oprah Jones staff pre-COVID. Then there was a lull with COVID and we've restarted on this very issue of how do HOAs come up with all the money necessary to replace all of their internal roadways. It's big six-figure money, and it's very difficult to get all of the residents in HOA to vote for massive increases in their fees to cover the roadway repair, replacement, et cetera. So the bill that provides avenues for that, I think, is sorely needed. It would enable local jurisdictions to move in that direction. And it certainly would say, if it gets passed at a state level, that this is a major issue, okay? And then the second bill, the Bill of Rights, is critical, I feel, not from an OMCA perspective internally, but for all of our landowners in OMCA. We are not members of the Columbia Association. Only one person in Oakland Mills is a member of CA, and that's Ginny Thomas. CA only has 10 members, the 10 CA reps. And it is, from research I've done over many years, I understand that it's the largest HOA in the country, and its lien payers are not members. What's wrong with that picture? Okay. To me, that first bill, or the first right in the Bill of Rights, would make all of us landowners in Oakland Mills members of CA. And that also would give us a lot of additional power and rights. And I don't want to get into all the details on that, but I think it's absolutely critical for all of us landowners to become members of CA. We're footing the bill at CA. A large part of the revenue comes, I think a third of the revenue in CA's budget comes from homeowners paying the lien fee. Yet we're not members. What's wrong with that picture? This bill would fix it. So thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't get myself off mute. Thanks, Bill. Lynn?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions, or actually more than a couple of questions. One is a comment, which is just that I wouldn't feel comfortable coming to any decision tonight without having received the thing on Sunday, and I looked it over on Monday. It's pretty complicated. And so I think there could be a third choice in there. You said we could do something tonight, or we could do something, schedule a meeting before our next meeting. But as we've done before, we could also come to an understanding that we do want to do something, and then do something where we circulate something via email, as we've done with testimony and that sort of thing. I'd feel more comfortable with that. So that's just a comment. My second question is, do we have, and especially Alex, this would be directed to you, and also Bill, and Paul, I guess you too, who have worked really closely on these issues. Do we have a sense of what CA's position with this is? How does CA feel? Because I know that first one, the Bill of Rights, wouldn't change how we operate as our HOA, but it certainly would change how CA operates. And so, wondering just what the implications of that are, which could be pretty transformational as far as what CA is and what CA does, in my opinion, just having looked at it. And then the second thing is do we have, and I see that Ashley is on the call, but I don't know that she's, really wants to be put on the spot tonight, but do we have a sense of how Howard County feels about this, and what the implications are? And then just a clarification. So I said I had a couple of questions. My other clarification is that this is part of a nationwide initiative, correct? That this is something that bills comparable to this one are being put in place all over the country as part of a nationwide initiative. So those are my.
Yeah, because I think the does the Bill of Rights one even reference that, or maybe it was in Alex's summary.
Yeah.
I don't recall, but somewhere
Yeah.
I remember even reading a reference to kind of this sort of thing happening nationwide.
Actually,
I know-
both bills it generated a lot of interest nationally. On the Bill of Rights is an outgrowth of Bill of Rights that was put together as model legislation by the Uniform Law Commission. I think I mentioned that in my background information. Whereas the Champlain Towers collapse in Florida motivated a lot of people around the country to do something about the massive cost of repairing infrastructure that leads to these kinds of disasters, because associations can't come up with the money fast enough to solve their problems. So yeah, these are both national issues, and not just Maryland.
Okay, thank you.
Lynn, I just want to address a couple of things, and I know Jenny has her hand raised, because the Bill of Rights is in the CA packet for Thursday night. I didn't see the other bill in the CA packet. I don't know if that's something that'll get added. But the Bill of Rights is definitely in the CA packet for discussion Thursday. So I'm sure Jenny will have something to say about that. The other thing, Lynn, yeah, I recognize we sometimes take that third option. The reason I didn't put that one on the table is normally, like if we're going to circulate some testimony by email, it's because we've already taken our position in an open meeting, and now it's just a matter of refining that to know what the testimony is. But this is one where we don't even know if we have a position yet. So I mean, I'll go with what the majority of the board thinks, but my thought was we should at least take the position in open meeting, and then we can work out the testimony over email if we take a position one way or the other.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Jenny?
Thanks, Jonathan. Just a minute. I want to close this door. Sorry about that. Okay, on the bill, I'm sorry, what was the bill number again, Alex? The one on the roads, HB
1061.
1061. No, it's not on the list, to answer your question for CA. I don't know why not, and I'll be asking about that. And the other thing about it, though, that always disturbed me about the current system in place is a developer got to actually choose whether he wanted public roads or private roads. Well, I believe what was happening is if you did private roads and put the whole burden on the homeowners that moved in for not just the roads, but you had the stormwater as well, pond and whatever else that the county would normally do, that was responsibility of the homeowners. But the developer got something in exchange. He got probably more lots, more buildable lots compared to a developer that was willing to have the public roads up to standard. So I think this is a little, I don't believe it was known and understood in those days. I don't know if the county in their wisdom when they created all this really knew what was happening, or they didn't understand the ramifications of it. But I think it's really puts the homeowner that's in a homeowners association where the developer chose to do private roads and thus at the expense, and private, stormwater, and thus at the expense of future homeowners that are going to have to deal with that issue in an unfair position. And then you have complicated with how many votes or percentage of votes you actually need to get people to pay. And if you're in an area where you have a certain percentage that really can't, just barely meeting the mortgage or the rental, you've got a real problem for maintaining the community. And thus my concern was always, as the roads deteriorate, you have safety issues for the fire department, the police department, et cetera, emergency ambulances, et cetera, to meet the needs or the concerns of people, and perhaps a matter of you could lose lives because of that. So I think we've had a serious problem, and there's got to be a way to deal with it. I know we've been trying, the county's been trying, and if this bill will do it, it's long overdue. So I think this is something CA needs to be looking at. Now, I'm just looking at what we'll be addressing Thursday, because we've been looking at mainly budget stuff, and 1060 is on there. And I will just tell you what our lawyer's saying. This bill would establish a Bill of Rights. This will be brief. The Bill of Rights for lot owners in a homeowners association, potential impact on CA. This is the opinion of CA staff, okay? The board is just seeing this. This bill proposes procedures that appear intended to apply to typical smaller HOAs, but those provisions are inconsistent with CA's unique organizational structure or governing documents and are unnecessarily duplicative of procedures that CA has already established. Well, I guess if we've already established, then it shouldn't do any harm. Status, we are working to have the proposed bill amended to include language stating that the bill does not apply to CA or the village community associations. And I think what you're saying, Jonathan, and our board saying is it doesn't apply anyway right now, correct?
No, I'm not saying well, from an Oakland Mills Village perspective, I'm not saying it doesn't apply. I'm saying this is the way we operate already. You know,
So it's no big deal.
outside of the capital funding pieces, because we don't have a capital budget. We don't do any capital investment or funding. As I look through the rest of it, it's already the way we do business.
Well, apparently though, our staff are asking for an amendment that states that the bill does not apply to CA or to the village community associations. And I don't know if you know that that's being requested.
No, I wasn't aware of, I actually didn't know what was happening at CA. I thought we were going to learn all that at Thursday's meeting.
Yeah. No, well, no, here's how this is handled. I fought a couple of years ago to actually make information public. It was just our attorneys and the contractors they hired, the law firm they hired, were down there doing their thing and quote, protecting CA. About 3 years ago, I fought to, and we won, to have on agenda an item that said state legislation, so that they had to tell us what bills they were looking at and what the position of CA was. All right, about a year ago, I realized that there's a lot of county legislation that we may want to take a role in as well. So we insisted that the county legislation be added as well, and that you see is in there. Now, whether we agree with or you agree with that they've covered all the bills that you think are important, that will come up. That does come up. But that's the background on that process, so that is much more of an open public process. Here's the problem. If you look at the agenda, the way it's now being handled, it will not, if you're assuming something will be discussed, it won't be, unless, look, I'm trying to find the agenda. If you look at the agenda for CA for February 24th, there's a section, questions only, number 8. So it's not like it was last year where when it says president's report, the chair would look to Milton and say, want to just tell us briefly. Well, we had already read his report, hopefully. And then you go to pre-filed legislation, you look at Sherry, our attorney, and ask the same thing. Not anymore. The way this is being handled now is, unless somebody has a question about all the things that are listing here, president's report on the CA reps for the Inner Arbor Trust, pre-filed legislation, and that's what this goes under. Board priority review, tracking forms, board requests, resident requests. It will not be discussed. So that's important to understand how the CA board is operating now this year.
So Ginny, let me ask, if the staff is making this recommendation and it's not discussed, does that mean CA is going to provide some sort of testimony on the first based on the staff recommendation?
Yep.
All right, so
They may have already. We're just getting to see this. I don't know when the bill came out, Alex.
So kind of outside of these specific bills, I do have one issue with what you're saying, and that is if they're taking a position and they're including the 10 villages in the CA position, they should be consulting with the villages, because we may not want to be included in that position. And we didn't know that we're potentially included in that position until just now.
There's a lot of bills. If you read through the packet for CA, there's more than just one where they say they are working to exclude the villages. And the villages managers asked for the lawyer to come to our meeting a few weeks ago, because there's also a bill that would want village managers to be go through classes and have courses and be certified. And the answer we got was no, he wouldn't come because he's not a counsel for the villages. He's the counsel for CA. And years ago, I mean, the managers went to Annapolis and it was the same kind of legislation. And we met with Piper law firm and they helped us with testimony and stuff. So I don't know, that didn't sit well with me. It's like, you know, no, they're saying on one hand, we're not going to come and tell you what's going on, managers. And the only way I know it is because I read the CA agenda. But on the other hand, they're putting villages into their testimony or talking on behalf of us before it even is heard.
Yeah, what Sandy's referring to is House Bill 26, regulation of common ownership community managers, which would be, I think, devastating, right, Sandy?
Yeah, and I'm just saying, like, they won't talk to us about it. Yeah.
I don't disagree with anything you said. I'm just saying, you know, it could be, it would be very detrimental, but I agree with everything you said. So we're all in this together. Maybe one village really likes it. They should have a right to, I doubt it, but they should.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Like, if what Bill said, how it could impact CA, it seems like CA is not even looking at that as something that could potentially impact them. It seems like if they thought that way, this would have been a bigger deal to the CA staff. So I'm not sure they're even reading that as impacting us all being members.
Well, I think they are. Otherwise, why would they be trying to get exempted from it? Why would they care?
I don't know, just for all the other provisions. That's my.
Sorry, which bill?
Now, when I look, and just to clarify, when I looked through the packet, the only place I saw that where it said they're actually working toward, you know, omitting CA in the villages was 1060. On 26 and the others, it said it basically came to some conclusions about whether it applies to CA in the villages, and it said they're monitoring. It didn't say they're working toward anything. But on this one, it does say they're working toward something for both CA and the villages. And anytime they're doing that, the villages need to be consulted. I mean, we can't have the CA attorneys simultaneously saying we don't represent you, but we're going to represent you.
One clarification on 26. I think what they're saying is we'll monitor it because currently the way the bill is drafted, it doesn't apply to CA in the villages.
Right.
But I you know, I understand Sandy's point, you know, in general.
Right. 26 says monitor, but 1060 clearly says working toward.
Yeah.
And it includes the villages.
Right. Right. I've read that. That's exactly what is we just got. You're absolutely right.
You could speak at their board meetings, speak out.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
Well, I think that's another decision we have to make, and that's it's another example of how, you know, when this legislation gets introduced with a short window between introduction and hearing, we have to be a bit more nimble because, you know, CA also doesn't play by the same rules we play by. So I actually thought this was something up for discussion tomorrow, not something that's been decided unless someone on the CA board says, hey, I want to talk about this before you send in this testimony. Lynn?
Yeah, just to that point, Jonathan, isn't there some standardization of when a bill is introduced that there has to be a certain amount of time before people react to it? I mean, this seems like a really quick turnaround time. Is this unusual, or do they, you know, introduce it and vote on it 2 weeks later?
Let's ask our former delegate, Ginny.
It's called the power of the chair. The chair decides on the schedule. So if this is something, boy, the head of the House, Speaker of the House, or the President of the Senate hands a bill to the chair of a committee and says, this is really important. Let's get this moving. An agenda is amended and it's put on for hearing, and you have to pay attention. I understand it's difficult, but you have to pay attention in that it could be heard in a very short period of time, or it could never be heard because the chair put it in the top drawer. So there are two options here and stuff in between. And that's, you can just take a look at the timing on a bill. It depends on the bill, whether it's popular, not popular. And because there's only 90 days and there's actually less than 90 days because you have to get a crossover date, say about, I don't know what the date is this year, but say about 30, 40 days into it, you have to get that bill over to the other house or forget about it. It'll go into a rules committee and probably not see the light of day. So you don't have much time to get a hearing. And then the vote is also scheduled by the chair of the committee. You could hear the bill on Thursday and they always vote on Friday. And guess what? The particular bill, it's amazing, will be voted on Friday, get to the floor by Monday night, Tuesday. First reader, second reader, ups there, it's over at the Senate. If it's a very bill that's really on a fast track.
And thank you.
That's
Well,
democracy.
for clarifying it, not that I think that's great.
I understand. It's like a chess game. You just, and
So
that
this either means that they're really thinking this is great and want to get it through fast, or that they don't want to hear anything from anybody who might want to send something in and testify about it, or both of those things.
usually, or sometimes, not always, like what Alex has been doing. That there's a sponsor that cares about a certain issue that's been trying to get it through. And now he's set up, I guess, a task force and you're working with them. So that this is in draft form. You should have gotten a copy of the draft. You're sort of prepared and you can get involved. There are groups like I'm on other groups on environmental issues. We meet weekly, sometimes twice a week now on different bills. This is not CA, this is environmental groups in the county. If it's your issue is blah, you may belong to a group or a coalition of groups that meets on that. And you spend all your time doing that and watching what's going on in Annapolis. In the case of CA, they have a firm that's hired, the guy's down there, and that's his job to watch what's going on. And he has a general idea to protect CA and lets our general counsel, is supposed to let our general counsel know, whoops. The difference is that I insisted that the public have a chance to also see what's happening, because that wasn't what was happening before. So now you have a chance to read this and come to a board meeting and say, I don't think so, or, what the heck's going on? Or why did you miss House bill or Senate bill such and such? That's the difference in how CA functions. Otherwise, the other part, there is somebody down there, and I'm not speaking against that. You need somebody with this tight schedule down there knowing in general what CA is all about and how it should be protected.
I agree with that. What I'd be interested in hearing from CA's attorney is, what is he protecting CA from? And what does he think he's protecting the villages from? Because quite honestly, I don't know if we would want to support this Bill of Rights, not support it, not take a position. But I'm kind of uncomfortable with, the 100,000 residents of Columbia sort of never really learning, because it's not discussed in open meeting, that their association and its villages, because the association did this on their behalf, has decided they shouldn't have these rights, because on the surface, it all sounds good. Now, maybe there's a good reason not to support it. I just don't know what it is. Like I said, from the village perspective, we already do it. So I don't know what the thought process is in CA in excluding the villages from this. And I would think the villages, like I said, at the very least, should be contacted by the CA attorneys and be briefed on this before they go in and say they're, actively working to exclude CA and the villages. If they want to exclude CA, fine. Residents can come to CA, speak out at the board meeting and say, that's wrong, that's terrible, why are you doing that? But residents don't have that opportunity with the village if the village is just going to be unknowingly lumped in with CA. Bill?
Real quick, Jonathan, I agree that with you about who is CA lawyers representing, when are they representing, et cetera. The legislation in Annapolis that takes place each year we do need a bird dog watching all of that. CA basically fills that function. It's a costly function. If Oakwood Mills had to do it for our own, it would be part of our budget. It'd be fairly costly. So I like that CA is carrying that burden. Okay, number one. Number two, if they are going to do that for the villages, and in certain statements include the village, then they need to get that all cleared with the village ahead of time. If they don't, then what they're saying is we own you, the village, period. Doesn't matter, you don't have any say. But then it's to their advantage. Other situations, well, we don't represent the village, you have to take care of yourself, okay? My concern is CA is becoming a dictatorship. I'll say it, it's becoming a dictatorship where they rule, the villages have no say. Their lawyer can say, I'm speaking for CA in the 10 villages without even letting the villages know about that. And that's words that I can't say on Hollywood Squares, okay? So to me, our issue is how do we deal with the dictatorship of CA? You don't mention our name and ask that our village be excluded unless you clear it with us first, okay? And I'm sure we would stand on very good legal ground if we went after them on that point, because we could go to our lawyers and our lawyers would say, no, they can't say they're representing you without clearing that with you first. And there'd be some lawyer back and forth between us and CA. I don't want to have to go that route. But I think the way CA is being handled, that we're going to have to confront them on this issue and other things. And the reason, my opinion, the reason they're against this Bill of Rights is they don't want any of us lien payers to be members. They don't want us to begin to have some power, okay? They want dictatorship. That's the whole bottom line. And we as a village can't let them use our name without our approval.
Actually, Jonathan, when you get the bill though for this representation, I'm kidding, Jonathan. Never mind.
So,
There's
you know,
another. Go ahead.
obviously, there's a lot to unpack here and not a lot of time. And, you know, I'm looking for input from the members of board here tonight for how to proceed. First of all, I do think, given that CA is going to act, apparently has already started acting regardless of what we do, I think at the very least, we need to send something to CA saying, wait a minute, you know, you can act on behalf of yourself, but you're acting on behalf of the villages and you haven't even explained to us why you're including the villages. Therefore, we would want to be excluded from your action until we have a better understanding of what it is you're doing. If CA went forward with that anyway, as odd as this might look, I would actually want to go and turn something in, you know, on behalf of OMCA, not even necessarily taking a position on House Bill 1060, but saying, CA is saying to exclude CA and the villages. The village of Oakland Mills has not determined that we should be excluded from this. And I know that might look odd, you know, to anyone at the state level reading it, but you know, CA is protecting itself from something. We don't know what it's protecting itself from. And I hate to say it this way, but I almost feel like we now, at the very least, have to protect ourselves from CA, because if not, they're going to make the decision for us. They're going to take a position for us. So it doesn't mean we need to take a position on the bill, but it might mean we need to communicate that we haven't taken a position. Therefore, don't listen to what CA is saying about us as a village. Lynn?
Yeah, just real quick, this sort of reminds me of what happened a few years ago where we all had a meeting and Milton Matthews and Sherry Fenneroff said how they were going to dissolve CA as an HOA, or we were all could choose, did we want to be part of CA or not be part of CA? And it was so confusing and didn't go anywhere. I went to the meeting, but it was just, it didn't make any sense. And is this somehow a revisiting of, in parts of it, kind of a revisiting of that? Or is it just CA operating the way CA operates?
That, I think it's CB 52 or something like that, or 58 or whatever you're talking about. Not that I'm aware of. There's been no discussion of that, but I understand where you're coming from. I think the other thing I'm going to be asking for is HB 1061 be added. I'll do that tonight. What I was thinking about is if a bill like that passes, I guess I'll be asking, is there potential for more revenue coming to CA? Because if the property values go down, it's less revenue for CA. I don't normally approach things that way, but you know, that would be the reason, I think, and you can correct me, Alex, or somebody else. So let's at least look at that from the point of view of if the roads are improved and whatever else, therefore property values will improve and therefore more revenue for this county as well. And we use that with Opal Jones and Calvin in terms of the county. And so that's what I'll be asking for. Am I missing something here, Alex, that I?
It's good. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think CA should be discussing 1061 as well, but again, I would hope they discuss it, you know, rather than just have the staff prepare something and maybe it passes without discussion. I mean, I don't mean to open up a whole other can of worms here, but you know, this is eerily familiar because what was it just last week we were talking about the top lot situation with the staff. So, you know, how many things can the CA staff decide without the board discussing the position in open meeting and coming to a decision? And ironically, this is what this Bill of Rights guarantees. I mean, this Bill of Rights would force associations to do this. And that's what we do here. That's why I said I don't think it would affect us very much. So it's ironic to me that CA is trying to protect itself from this by doing exactly the opposite of what this bill says these HOAs should be doing.
So, Jonathan, I'd like to suggest, since it's now almost 8 o'clock and we're obviously we need to educate ourselves a good deal about this before we decide what we're going to do. Looks like we're going to do something, but what we're going to do is really kind of up in the air. So I think we should schedule another Zoom meeting or another something for between now and our next meeting. This is really too important for us to be.
I agree, and I really didn't think it would take this long, but then when the CA packet came out, it added the extra wrinkle because we've actually spent more time talking about that than the merits of the bills themselves.
But then we'll know we'll have input from CA, or we will at least know what happened during the CA meeting. We'll all have time to really review the two bills.
So here's our challenge with that. I think at the very least, I'm going to recommend, and this doesn't even necessarily require the board taking a position, but I'm going to recommend we draft something to send to CA, the CA president and its board tomorrow, you know, stating our concerns with what we saw in the packet and our need to be briefed, or I guess at this point it needs to be something written, because the CA meeting is Thursday night. We need some information from CA about what they're working toward and why they're working toward that, and including the villages. And we need that as soon as possible, because we may need to weigh in at the CA meeting Thursday night. You know, obviously the soonest we can meet again is tomorrow, but we will just be spinning our wheels if we don't get anything from CA by then. If we get something from CA by tomorrow, we need time to absorb it. If we met Thursday night, we'd be meeting simultaneous to the CA meeting, so that wouldn't do us any good with CA. So we're really up against the wall here. So I think we need to get something out to CA immediately. And if we get something back on that by close of business tomorrow, it still gives us some time maybe to discuss via email whether we want to say something at that CA meeting Thursday night. If we don't get something back, then, you know, we still have maybe a couple of nights left if we try to avoid, you know, non-business days, you know, to potentially meet again before the hearing Tuesday. But I mean, we're really tight.
Well, I move that we get something to CA immediately. And that means, I guess, Jonathan, you can draft something. You know, I don't know any other way around it, because we've got, you know, not even a week.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sandy and I can get something drafted up pretty quickly. It's you know, pretty short and sweet. House Bill 1060 was introduced on the 10th. The hearing is on the 1st. We noted in the CA packet that CA is already working toward excluding the villages and CA from this legislation. The village of Oakland Mills would needs to hear from the CA attorney by close of business why they feel that, the village should be excluded from this legislation. Otherwise, we request that CA does not speak on our behalf.
Pretty clear.
I second.
Yeah.
I second, yeah.
Okay, any further discussion on that part? Ginny?
Yeah, it's from what my reading of this, the committee has already been informed that both organizations, or there should be an amendment to remove both from the bill. So it would require action on the part of CA to really correct that with the committee. If Oakland Mills didn't want to be associated with it, I would think. And then
So
I don't know
that-
how the other village board, boards feel, but it's already been done, is my reading of this.
That confuses me a bit. It's unclear to me because the language in the packet says we are working to have the proposed bill amended. So I don't know whether to read that as they've already done something or they're preparing the testimony for the first.
No, what I think it means is, again, when lobbyists are down there, they access, depending on how powerful the lobbyist is, the chair, the vice chair, the sponsor of the bill, et cetera. So that information, if you're doing it right, should have been put in writing and given to legislators, the appropriate legislators, to make sure that amendment is already being drafted. The bill's been filed, so it would require.
Jonathan, you keep talking about the CA packet. Did we get copies of the CA packet? What is this?
Online.
No,
I can-
it's posted on the CA website. So I always look at it and I read through it and then I sent it to Jonathan because it had those bills in it.
Oh,
Yeah, here, let me bring it up as a share real quick.
it's a little muddier and muddier as we go on, and smells a little
Yeah.
worse and worse.
And the other thing about this that bothers me is that they say it's inconsistent with CA's unique organizational structure or governing documents, but I mean, this would require changing that. I think that
Yeah,
point was
that's the
already made in
point of it.
resident speak out. But then it says unnecessarily duplicative of procedures that CA has already established. And that's actually what I was saying. We already do most of this stuff. Well, why would you ask to be excluded from something you claim you already do? Who cares? There's no cost to comply if you already do it. So to me, CA is even contradicting itself in this impact statement. And then after that, they throw in the part about the village community associations. But there is no statement of potential impact to the village community associations. It's just potential impact to CA. So why are we tossed into the work
Bill.
they're doing on the proposed bill?
It would seem.
And again, it's not that I don't appreciate CA potentially looking out for us, but if you're looking out for us, tell us what's going on. Don't just assume we agree with you.
Yeah, it's protectionist, but we should be informed that we're being protected and what
Right.
from. Hmm.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to, how do I get rid of this? The motion on the floor is to basically contact CA as soon as possible. So basically get something out first thing tomorrow morning. Is there any further discussion? Otherwise, I'm going to call a vote on that
I have a
motion.
discussion. Do you want to first make a motion to amend the rules or procedures to vote on this?
Oh, yeah, because this is new. Okay,
Right.
fine.
Thank you,
Okay.
Amy. She texted me.
Lynn, would you care to rescind your motion?
I'll rescind my motion.
For a minute.
Is there a motion to suspend our new business board standards so that we can take a position on CA's position on House Bill 1060 tonight in the interest of expediency?
Actually, are we really taking a position on CA's position, or we're just asking them what they're
Actually, you
doing?
know what, now that, I don't even think we need a motion for this. We're just
No,
saying we
we're
need to get in
just
touch with CA.
asking, what are you
Okay.
doing?
Oh, so you're not making any motions at all?
Let me do it this way. Does anyone on the board object to reaching out to CA with the, basically, I'll call it the what the heck is going on letter?
Question.
And if you can't tell us what's going on, please exclude us from what you're doing for right now, because we don't have a position yet.
Mhm.
That would be the position. If we're forced to take a position with CA, our position would be, we don't have a position yet, so don't take it for us.
So that's not really a position, it's a question.
Right.
I'm happy with that.
Okay. All right. We can do that.
So do I motion that, or do we just do it?
I'm sorry.
There's no motion.
You do it, or do we just do it?
This is just outreach. I don't think we need a motion. This is just outreach to
Okay.
CA, because it's not taking a
More
position. It's telling,
information, the same as if I went to the CA board meeting and reported back.
right.
But Jonathan, do we need to do that first thing you were just doing? So that I know we can't do any positions now because we don't have all the information, but should we hear back from CA, hopefully we'll understand the issue a little better from their perspective, then we may or may not want to take a position. And then we're under a shorter deadline to actually get that to somebody who cares.
Well,
But
that's
we've
where we
already
would need
brought
to
it
meet
up
again.
as we've already brought it up as new business, so it would be fine.
Yeah, we would need to schedule an emergency meeting. And the reason for the meeting would be a short turnaround on legislation in the House of Delegates. But we would have to find at least 4 of us who are able to make a meeting between now and basically next Monday evening.
It's even worse than that, because you need to get testimony in 2 days before.
Oh, thank you, Paul. You're right.
Friday, we need to get it in.
Correct.
So should we just schedule an emergency meeting sometime Friday, like Friday morning, so that after the CA meeting on Thursday?
I don't even know that we need to wait for the CA meeting. I mean, we could do this.
I'd like to know what happens with CA and what we get back from CA.
Yeah, but I'm saying that the meeting may not reveal anything. It's because we're going to ask for an answer from CA tomorrow.
Right.
We want to know what's going on with the CA staff before CA meets. We don't want to learn it at the CA
Right,
meeting.
at the meeting.
So I'm saying we either get something back from CA tomorrow. Basically, what I want to send to CA is, you need to get back to us by close of business tomorrow, or you need to omit us from what you're doing, because we don't know enough about this to be comfortable being included in your attempt to, to exclude us from the legislation.
So sometime Thursday or Friday would be our
Yeah.
emergency meeting. I will make time either of those days.
I don't know if everyone has, calendars available now. I'd like to give ourselves as much time as possible. So would, I'm trying to look at things myself here.
Jonathan, could I add something to what Paul said?
Yes,
The deadline for indicating that you want to testify is Friday. And you have between 8 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon to inform
Yeah.
that you do want to testify.
so would everyone be available at some point Thursday evening? And I realize that that's the same evening as the CA meeting, but maybe we could get something in before the CA meeting to ensure that Ginny is also able to join us. We certainly wouldn't want to schedule after the CA meeting, because then we'd be greeting each other at about 11 p.m. or something. But
I cannot do Thursday evening.
okay.
Do we have to do the evening? I'm looking around and I kind of think, Jonathan, you might be the most difficult with your work schedule.
Yeah,
during the day?
I'm actually in an all-day uh, training event Thursday for work, so I don't even get like a predictable lunch break or anything. I mean, I could take a shot and say, let's go for noon. The first day of this thing I'm in, it's a 2-day thing, so the first day is tomorrow, and I'll get a you know, a better agenda. And it is virtually, so, you know, I'm free to do what I want on lunch. It's not like a networking type thing. So I could make an assumption that roughly noon would be a break in the day, but I don't know for sure until tomorrow. So we could tentatively set like, you know, noon Thursday, like a lunchtime meeting. And I can get back to you all. And of course, I don't necessarily need to be here. I mean, as long as we have a quorum, Bill can always chair a meeting in my absence, but I don't know whether I can commit to that yet.
How about Friday morning?
It's too late.
I thought we had all day Friday.
Until 3. Until 3 in the afternoon.
That to sign up for, if you want to testify, but what about if you just want to hand in some testimony? Is that also a deadline Friday?
I'm not sure about that, Ginny.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, see, my concern with meeting Friday is we form a position, but then we need time to write it.
The testimony.
And how long does your training go on Thursday?
Hang on, let me I think it's something like 8:30 to 4:30 or 5. I'm trying to pull up my I'm trying to get into my the work side of my phone here.
I was just thinking that, you know, it doesn't have to be 7 o'clock at night. It could be late afternoon.
Yeah, well, no, that's actually what I was starting to propose. I was saying, let's get this in before CA meets at 7. So it would be something that starts earlier and would have to end before CA meets so that Ginny can get to the CA meeting. But I think Warren, at least Warren was not available. We didn't even hear from everyone else.
That's Thursday evening, but I could do the Thursday afternoon, I think.
I can't do Thursday anytime after 3:30. Let me do the math. After 2. But that doesn't mean you guys can't. I'm sure if that works.
Yeah, so I'm in that thing 8 to 5. But like I said, I would assume there's a lunch break in the middle there. So, you know, noon is probably roughly when that will be. If we wanted to try to get it in there, I just don't know for sure yet. I'll get the full agenda tomorrow morning when I go into it. Actually, hang on. Let me look at something. Sorry.
Maybe Jonathan, instead of taking meeting time to do this, could we send out a doodle poll thing tomorrow to?
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, we just need to establish a quorum. Now, let me look at one other thing. So most of the talk has actually been about 1060, the Bill of Rights, because that's where we also have the situation with CA. The other bill that we haven't talked about very much is 1061, which is the one that would enable local jurisdictions to set up that fund, you know, to support common ownership communities. Which does align with what the Housing Committee has been doing. So I don't know if anyone wanted to talk about that today and potentially get that one out of the way, given the work the Housing Committee has been doing, or you want to package the whole thing for this next meeting.
I'd like to package it so I can go back through it. I don't have any
Okay,
offhand objections, but don't feel like I've
Okay.
read it really.
all right. I would ask, just because time is obviously going to be very tight, just, make sure everyone gives a thorough read through so that we can, basically knock these out one way or the other at that meeting. Because anytime we do this next meeting, it is going to be fairly time constrained. Just because of what's going on at CA and then what has to happen Friday. So we just, have to be prepared to go in there and, raise the pros and cons and then come to a decision as a board if we're going to take a position on it. All right. Well, sorry that took a bit longer than I thought it would, but again, there was the CA wild card or joker thrown in at the last minute, which made it even more complicated and even more time sensitive than we even thought it was, because some of that is sensitivity for tomorrow.
And even more crucial to us, actually.
Yes, absolutely. All right, I'm going to move us on to old business. I'll send out a poll after this meeting with, potential availability for the what are we calling it? The ad hoc meeting, the emergency meeting, whatever it is. Old business. Maybe we can even make up a little bit of time on Paul's thing. So we're bringing back as old business another bill, a bill that we had more time to absorb, and that's Senate Bill 658. And there's also a corresponding House bill whose number I forget, but I know Paul knows it. And that was whether we want to support the establishment of an aviation commission. And this relates to the next gen airplane noise that Paul has been working on behalf of the Village Association for several years now. So Paul, excuse me, I don't know if you had an update for us on that, but the floor is yours if you have anything. Otherwise, we can discuss whether we're taking a position on that.
Okay, there's no update since I last came before the board. I sent you a slide deck, which I think really explains thoroughly what that bill is all about. And the important thing is, at least in my mind, is that community activists will be running this particular commission. And we're trying to get a balance between what's been going on at BWI and what's been affecting communities throughout this area. We feel that this is the only way to really deal with larger issues, because the roundtable can only deal based on their charter with flight paths. And we have tried to deal with noise and changing flight paths. We are not getting very far with the FAA. This is looking at what other things may be looked at and what might be needed in changes in COMAR, the Code of Maryland regulations. But we need data for that, and we need research. And this is what this commission would do over the next 5 years. So I'd be happy to answer any questions based on what I've sent you in the bill itself.
So I'm going to see if I can make this part short and sweet. Obviously, this is an issue we've been following for years. Oakland Mills is clearly, I'm listening to them going over now, and I'm on the first level. So there's a level above me and an attic, and I hear them, clearly in the flight path, clearly has been affected by next gen, hasn't really had the say we think we should have. So I think the establishment of this commission is a good thing. And I think we should prepare something, in support of the establishment of the commission, basically laying out that, we are a community that's fairly close to BWI. We are in the flight path. We are affected by the noise. And we feel that additional study and citizen representation on such a committee would be beneficial to our community.
So is that a motion?
I'm putting that out there. I want to see if anyone feels otherwise.
Oh. I would agree. So
I also agree.
Yeah, it's a great idea, long overdue.
yeah.
Okay. So now I will make a motion to, write written testimony supporting the establishment of the commission, supporting Senate Bill, I'm already forgetting the number, Senate Bill 658 to establish the Aviation Commission on behalf of the Oakland Mills community.
And its counterpart, 1103, HB 1103.
Yes. Sandy, can you get the note on 1103? Because I'll forget that by the end of the night.
I
All right.
second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, 0. All right. Well, we made up about 8 minutes on that one, but we're still,
I
I
have a
don't even
question.
want to think about how far behind we are. No questions. We're done with
Question.
that.
No, I need to know who seconded it. Who seconded?
I did.
Lynn
Okay.
did.
And thank you, Paul.
All right.
You're welcome.
Next up is the update on the watershed projects in Oakland Mills. John did come back with an alternative at Netherstone. Sandy did circulate that. It's also in the board packet. I'm still of the opinion that we need to hear from John, what the logic is behind the selections of those sites, do the site visit that we've asked for along with Bob Marietta. Consider what else, is potentially of greater need in Oakland Mills. I don't know how John prioritizes. We obviously have situations where pieces of Oakland Mills are literally falling into waterways. So, it's difficult for me to, to assess without a site visit and without hearing directly from John, whether this is, the best bang for the buck. I was taking a walk through Thunderhill the other day, where the path crosses Thunderhill Road, south of Patriot Lane. I was on the east side of Thunderhill Road and I was going over that bridge that kind of leads to where you can sneak into the north end of Blandair Park or continue south. And I noticed that there's a wood fence to separate a yard from a waterway, except all the posts that used to be in the ground are completely exposed by the erosion. I mean, the whole thing's literally falling in. So I don't feel like I can tell whether this is the ideal bang for the buck environmental project without.
I think Jonathan froze.
He did.
He's just getting a really long stretch of his arm. Oh, there he is.
You're back.
Oh, did I freeze in the middle of all that?
You did.
Oh, what did you hear?
You didn't know about bang for our buck, and kind of it went from there. You wanted to
Oh,
walk through.
You didn't hear the whole thing about the fence I saw falling into a
Oh, we
stream in
did hear
Thunder
that.
Hill?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. So in the end, I said, I'm glad that John gave us another option. I don't know that I could make a decision tonight based on him sending a paragraph. I still think we need discussion with him. I still think we need to visit these sites, and I still
Oh, no, I
think we
told
need-
him that. Yeah.
Okay. And
It's
I was
better.
going to say, I still think we need to hear about other, hear or observe for ourselves other situations in Oakland Mills where, basically a CA waterway is not in great shape and figure out where we're going to get the most bang for the buck.
Mhm. Also, I'd be interested in the idea of should it go to complete something that's already been started by CA or start something new? And what other resources are available to complete one or start another?
So it'll probably have to be on a weekday day that we meet with him. So I can probably ask him for a few choices in the next upcoming weeks and see what works.
Mhm.
So,
So Rebecca and then Bill and then Warren.
a couple things. I met with some watershed stewards the other day about the long reach project, just some friends, just trying to figure out what all this hubbub is about long reach, and this is going to be connected, so I'll get there. Just give me a second. In order to, there's stream issues everywhere. All the stream banks are caving in all over Columbia. In order to fix just those, I think it's like a 2.5 mile stretch over in Long Reach, it's going to be like millions of dollars. It's something ridiculous. So yes, Jonathan, that house in Thunder Hill is like one of the worst examples. Ginny, I know Ginny's even been out to look at it
I've
several
seen
times.
it, yeah.
Yeah. But in order to fix that kind of problem, it is not the money that we have for this project. This project has a lot less money than something that could even, you know, we could temporarily throw a bunch of concrete bricks there, but that's just going to make the problem worse. And in the end, it's not going to help. So we can't really tackle a big problem like that with this. This is a much smaller project, but both of these projects, primarily the first one, is going to prevent more issues like that from happening down the line. And so I love the idea of walking Oakland Mills with John and getting his ideas about where there are issues and stuff. But I also like letting people do their job, and he's really good at it. And so on this one, I kind of trust him if he says that this is the project that needs to get done here. I don't think my knowledge is going to help him out, you know, to find a better project, if that makes sense. He knows our neighborhood, and he knows the issues that we have, I guess.
Excellent point.
Yeah. I think it was
Excellent.
it Warren and then Bill and then Ginny?
It was Bill, then
Oh,
me.
Bill and Warren, then Ginny. Okay.
Just real quick, the two projects, I've walked the areas, and one, from what John had said and what John has typed up, I don't fully understand what would be entailed. So I definitely would want a field visit with John, with the board, for explanation. In terms of best projects, I think it was 9 years ago, John and CA came to the village board. I was not on it at that time, with a project to put trees in the middle of the largest flat mowed area in open space in Oakland Mills, okay, which is used for recreation. And the board got residents involved, and we met with John and CA and said, people use that for recreation. That's the largest flat mowed area in Oakland Mills, and you're going to put trees through the middle of it. And he said, well, the day I was there, I didn't see anybody playing, and CA was getting a credit per each tree that they planted. So I felt that was very bad judgment, and we made that known, and the trees were not planted. The issue I have is that I've looked at both of them. I don't know what damage would be done further if neither project were done. I do know that CA has streams everywhere, banks are falling in. I know two people, Bob Delaney and George Bernier, whose property marker is out in the middle of a CA stream, okay? They've actually lost property. And those properties, and I know George, I'm talking to him today, the properties have been there 50 years, and George has been in his for 40 years. Those properties have been paying the lien fee to CA for 50 years. And CA won't give their land back, so to speak. I understand there's truckload more money involved in giving people their land back. But in terms of priorities, to me, that would be the top priority, is to make landowners who've been paying lien fee forever whole when they've lost land into a stream. So I would say I wouldn't want to vote until we walk the properties with John and ask the questions, what are other possibilities, like Linda said, that you could start, or ones that's already been started you could add into, et cetera, that would be good uses for the 26,000. I think, personal opinion, I think there are more options than just two, okay? So, thank you.
It was Warren and then
Yeah.
Ginny.
Thanks, Bill. I walked Netherstone yesterday. And I do know that it looks like the backyards of many of those houses are flooded when it rains. So that's all I got from that. But I agree with Bill. We probably should walk and talk to John about that. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thanks, Warren. Ginny?
Yeah, I also agree with Bill that I think it's important to get out in the field and look at it. I think, Rebecca, were you referring to not so much the haylage issue that Bill was referring to, but were you referring to the Scarecrow court issue?
For what?
The
The worst one, the one at the crosswalk on Thunder Hill.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of, what's the street next to Patriot? What is it?
Yeah. One of them's across the street, one's next door. I can't remember.
This is
One,
next door.
Raccoon Court's across the
Ra-
street from
okay,
Patriot.
so Scarecrow, yes. It
This
is
is the one where the Thunder Hill pool, the nursery,
Yeah.
are right back of it, and the property is literally just a real mess. That's the one that you're referring to, I think.
No, that one's bad too, but I think the one over at the crosswalk is changing a lot more rapidly.
Crosswalk for,
At the crosswalk at Thunder Hill, but regardless, they're both really
Okay.
terrible.
okay.
We have a lot of choices for,
Yeah.
sadly.
On the other side of where Rebecca's talking about, in the stream, there is a tree growing in the bed of the stream. It's the bank has eroded so much, the tree has fallen into the stream, but it's still alive, and it's blocking water, things like that. So it's evidence that the bank is eroding very badly. It's like Lynn said, there's many projects there's
Yeah.
many opportunities to fix our waterways.
All over Columbia.
Yeah,
Yes.
but all the waterway projects are not $26,000 projects. And there's lots of money out there from the state and from other things that they're really trying to tap into I mean, none of these are you can't do a little thing here or there. You have to do the whole thing if you actually want to make a difference. So the stream issues are a problem, but none of them can be fixed with for this project.
Yeah, also, I think to your point, Rebecca, that if we fix one thing and upstream from it, there's still a lot of
Downstream.
going on, or downstream from it where, it's just a matter of time before the problem repeats itself.
Mhm, mhm. Right.
All right, so I think at the moment, we're not going to decide, between one or the other. We still want to talk to John, get out and do the site visit. And Rebecca, I do appreciate what you're saying. And I have no idea what these things cost. I just, I just walk around and go, oh my gosh, that house is falling into the stream. I mean, it was pretty alarming just to see the post like totally exposed, 3-4 feet down into what used to be the ground, just sticking out of what used to be ground.
And I think, Warren, you might remember, I think they put that fence, and Ginny, you might even know, because I know you've been out there a couple of times. I think they put that fence in fairly recently to show how their property line is disappearing.
It definitely looked like fresh
Yes.
wood. It did not look like aged wood, which was
Mhm.
even more disturbing to me, because that was my thought. That looks like a new fence and it's already exposed like that.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. All right, so Sandy, can you work toward getting some times from John where we can,
Mhm.
do some field visiting?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Okay, board chair report. Let me make up some time for us here. I'm going to do both of my items under Education Committee instead of board chair. However, I do want to thank Sandy for sending something today. I've been nagging about the appearance of the Village Center, Cedars part of it, and want to thank Sandy for sending a reminder to the property manager that the village center is starting to look especially shabby, the parts that Cedar owns. Just basic things like, emptying the trash, blowing the leaves. Actually, after Sandy sent it, I pointed out that I was there yesterday and I noticed that, the white metal roof over the front of the village center, it's not so white anymore in some places. In fact, over the liquor store, it's pretty much black. So thank you, Sandy. For those others who have noticed it, Sandy is on that with the property manager, is reminding her of the basically, punch list of items that we've had out there since pre-COVID. And I'm all for, turning up the pressure because, let's face it, other than Second Chance, which they intend to tear down, for the first time in the 20 years I've lived here, that village center is fully occupied. So, they really don't have excuses not to maintain it. They have merchants in every building they intend to keep. And then unless there are any questions for me, I'll do the rest in education. I had a couple of education items. All right, Ginny, Columbia Council report. Let's talk more CA.
Sure, Jonathan, thanks. I guess, we'll be voting on the budget tomorrow. I still have some concerns about staffing. That's not, we're debating whether we have even a role in deciding whether certain staff are hired or not, or, additional staff are hired or not. There are board members that just feel that's what we pay the president to do. So that's one of the arguments. My concern is how much of a surplus we're going to have. There was one comment, and I want to double check this, at the last board meeting where suddenly one of the staff said we could have a $10 million surplus. Now, I hope, I don't know if I heard that right, but if I did, that certainly creates other problems as to, well, then, what should we be spending now, and what should we be making any increases in membership fees or anything? So I have some real concerns about that as well. I hate to bring it up again, but the 6 pence thing. All right, we are going to be voting on that. That's the good news. We finally got it on the agenda for a vote. It comes after the number 6 board votes annual charge rate and cap. And I am, that I thought we decided. We seem to keep bringing things back. I don't know why. Then the proposed 23 draft capital budget and the proposed 23 draft operating budget. The draft capital budget includes 500 and I think 11,000 for tot lots, and I believe about 85,000 is for the 6 pence tot lot, which, by the way, is located within a reasonable distance of 2 tot lots, a tot lot and a sort of another playground for older kids at Clemens Crossing Elementary School. So anyway, but then the last vote will be reallocation of the FY 14 and 15 capital funds for 6 pence tot lot. I want to make sure we really understand how much was put in that budget. We're hearing $300,000, but I'm trying to double check that and see exactly what the money is, how much was put in. Then was any of it spent is my next question I'm waiting for an answer on, because we're being told there's now 302,000 remaining in unspent funds. I thought at one point the village had asked for basketball courts on that. This is the area near the village center that is right adjacent to the village center. So they had asked for basketball courts, or CA did a design on basketball courts, and then apparently it was a no-no. So I want to know how much did we spend on that, and there. But what the village is asking for is that, or staff is recommending at CA, that the CA board approve the use of up to 125,000 from the capital project approved for Hickory Ridge and put it towards the tot lot. Okay, I know this is getting to be a boring issue for you. So here's my concern. The cash reserves, that was killed. That's no longer an issue on the table. Trying to think-
Meaning they decided they're not going to use they can't use that for that project. Okay.
Well, a lot of us were going to vote against it, but CA staff finally came back and said, oops, maybe not a good idea. So that was killed. So the only remaining option for this two forts that would be built on this tot lot and thus make it more of a playground, I guess you'd say, or certainly with the forts for up to 10 years old, would be to go into the money that was allocated for some design, some amenity around the village center of Hickory Ridge. The argument is, well, the case was denied. So, the money's been there since 2014 or 2014 or 2015. So why not just use some of it for this tot lot? Okay, couple of things. Why would you do that? Are we saying that if, money is allocated for any village for one purpose and it's not being used right away, that, oh, they can do anything they want with it? Why do we think that that's even a good location there for a tot lot? There's X number of homes. We are basically giving each home $15,000, because this is not easy to get to. You're not going to be just driving in there and having all your kids play. So it's a limited number of people will actually be using it. I find that bad. The other thing is, at some point, we haven't developed even playground criteria. We have tot lot criteria, but we have not developed playground criteria. I think the intent was always we would do that next. So we'd be violating that. So supposing in the future Hickory Ridge comes back and rightly says, well, we wouldn't consider that a playground, even though it's for kids up to 10. We want another location, maybe in another place that's frankly better than this location and would serve more people. So therefore, we need a couple of $100,000 to do our playground. They'd have a perfect right to do that. And I don't think that would be fair. Also, there's a good chance that the developer will appeal the decision and go to the courts and win. And if that's the case, then we, or whoever's on the CA board at that time, will have to come in with additional money up to probably 300, 400,000 at that point for an amenity around the village center for Hickory Ridge. So both ways, you could be giving Hickory Ridge a lot more money. And I certainly think you want to do something about the amenity around the village center. And I don't see how it's connected, quite frankly, to just a zoning case. I know everybody's connecting it, but what stops a village from saying, hey, let's just move ahead and use that money? Because while we're waiting for the zoning board and the developer to decide what to do with that land, we have this site. Maybe we should be doing something that would be an amenity that would attract people to come to our village center, stay there maybe longer and shop, and maybe support our current merchants so we don't continue to lose merchants. So I would argue it from that point of view that maybe Hickory Ridge should be saying, let's spend the money now with something. I don't quite get that it has to be tied into a zoning decision. They already know what would be proposed by Kimco if in fact the zoning case is reversed. They know. I mean, it's not going to change that much, I don't believe. So there'll be residential, there'll be commercial. So you could go ahead and plan that and use that money. If we allow them to use it for very few people that'll be using that 6 tot lot that, as I said, is near also a tot lot and a playground at Clemens Crossing Elementary School, then they're going to ask for more money. Is that fair to the other villages? I don't think so. So that's the debate, but at least we got to the point where instead of kicking it down the road all the time, which was the approach at the last board meeting, some of us really were fighting for it has to be voted on. The CA board has to take a position Thursday night. It's not fair frankly, even to the residents that live around there, they need to know. You can't just say, well, the 6 pence tot lot was approved, and we're going to look at that, the forts and the other $120,000, $150,000, or maybe more when we find out what the cost will really be down the road. Because I don't see how you design that tot lot then if you're doing that. So it wasn't even logical, but it's back, it's on the agenda, and we'll see what happens. But I think you figured out my position. For it? Oh, I
Oh,
thought
no, for you. Everything you said.
What, Rebecca?
No, for you.
I would also say that for if they spend what they're thinking, if there was this money, $195,000, it's the same metal equipment, just two of them. And if they're going to spend that kind of money, they should design a beautiful, fun, state-of-the-art tot lot like Rebecca and Lynn have been saying, and not just put two metal forts and say, here's your bigger tot lot. I think that would be a total waste. And when you look at the pictures of it, I don't think any 12-year-old is going to want to play on it. So I just think that would be, if they're going to spend that money, then at least design a real play area. Don't just stick 2 forts of metal.
Can I comment on, Jonathan, on Sandy, what Sandy just said?
Sure.
Yeah, one of our colleagues on the board actually said the same thing, that actually she said 10-year-olds wouldn't be playing on this.
I looked at it today. I'm like, they wouldn't. A 5-year-old might. Yeah.
Well, then you're really saying that tot lot for tots gets more money than any other tot lot in Columbia.
Yeah.
Why are they so special? If we're saying that, really, come on. And the other thing that somebody else was saying is, wait a minute, do you really want little kids playing with bigger kids, fighting over who, gets that, that thing? And the other issue is, if you go there, we've had some board members saying, that's not even a good location for a quote larger tot lot or larger thing. And you usually, the community, if we get to criteria on playgrounds, the village board would be involved in where do you think it should go? What do you think about, well, first of all, what do you think about the criteria? And where do you think it should go? And they're not tot lots. They would be a playground. Is that a location for a playground where you're going to spend a lot of money? Or would that be more centrally located? And again, as I say, if you do something at the village center, you at least maybe would be, the goal should be to attract people to support the current merchants as well as whatever development takes place. So you got to wait for development to occur, and it could be a couple of years. I don't see that it's necessarily relevant. You should be trying to support your current merchants. So, and the actual equipment that's being used, yes, that's come up also with some people, but that doesn't look like that's going to change at all right now, anyway. They're just, okay. That was it. Trying to think if there's anything else. Well, a lot of issues, but okay.
Look, if CA wants to redirect money on supporting a village center that's, up for redevelopment and Hickory Ridge doesn't want it, we know Cedar wants to knock down Second Chance, and it sits right there next to that barn, and it has that, beautiful fountain that's not functioning and nice courtyard. Maybe CA should just acquire that and think of what they want to do with it.
I think that's an excellent point. And at least let's give all the villages a chance. Somebody else may say in Wild Lake, I could attract more business for our merchants if you would expand something with the swim center or the tennis courts over there, pickleball courts or something. Yeah, a Long Reach, boy. It's just not fair. It is not fair the way this is being handled, but it will be an extremely close vote, very close vote.
I don't know though, Jonathan, I'd be careful what you wish for. I don't know that given all we've heard about CA that I would want them taking over our village center.
But I mean, but I don't want to go down another path, but let's think about other things, right? What we've heard for several years, even before COVID, is CA doesn't have the money to do all these things. Okay, you have a village that does not want the village center redeveloped. I don't think it should then be use the money for something we really want here. If that's what CA is trying to do, if it's trying to maintain or enhance its facilities, and it was going to, basically chip in for what it has as part of that village center, which is now not happening. Think of all the other things that need work. I mean, if we're going to stay on the capital side of the house, we still have the neighborhood center issue that hasn't been fully resolved. What was it? $150,000 completely fixes up one of the neighborhood centers in Oakland Mills. That was like the high-end estimate to completely fix up a neighborhood center. So, there are so many other investments that could happen before you put up the playground version of the Twin Towers. And I don't get it. CA needs to think of their money across Columbia. They shouldn't be earmarking to a village, and then if the village doesn't want that, we'll do something else in the village. No, that was for CA infrastructure at the village center. The village doesn't want the village center redone. The money should come back into CA.
Exactly.
No, the problem is they will want it redone. They're saying it's a timing issue. So they'll want that money. They're really saying they want it both ways. Hey, you can use this money right now, but by the way, when we get to the point where we want that, we expect that CA and staff and board will now fund a new amount, which by the way, will cost a lot more, I'm sure.
Well, you're right. It's worse. It's worse. But my point is the reason this timing issue exists is because they killed the original plan for the village center. They said they didn't want that. Therefore, they now have this time, and they're using this time as a way to get something out. Yeah.
It's well, never mind. It's sad, but it will be a very, very close vote, and there's a chance, well, never mind. We'll see what
Well, the
happens.
CA board
Thank
should
you.
get a lecture on what's best for all of Columbia when they vote, and not just what's best for a particular village.
It's not even a village, Sandy. That's
No.
what gets me upset. It's a
Street.
20, I think we got 20 emails, and I guess they all live on lien property. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that, area, whether that's all pure, CA residents. Maybe it is, maybe some of it isn't, I don't know. But that's it. That's the other thing that's frustrating is we're not saying, hey, at, I don't know, Stevens Forest, let's have a playground, which somebody thought we had, by the way. Remember, thank you guys for helping out the other night. We don't. It's Stevens Forest is categorized as a tot lot. Somebody thought we had a playground, and therefore Dorsey Search has one, therefore other villages should have it. No, we need criteria so that we understand what we're doing, what goes into a playground. Is it really needed? If you're right across from Blandair Park, do you really want to spend 400 grand on CA to develop a playground for 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds across from Blandair Park? I mean, those are the things you should be looking at.
Does CA even have a clear definition of the difference between a playground and a tot lot, or is it one of those I know it when I see it type things?
No, that's the problem. When the Dorsey Search one got approved, people got upset and said, all right, we have to have criteria. We have to develop a policy. We have not done that. The staff has not presented anything. The board has not acted on it. So you don't go ahead. That's grounds alone for not going ahead and spending more money on this tot lot. Then why we've got how many tot lots? Why don't you guys come in and ask for, except you hate this equipment, ask for a couple of $100 grand more because you think that would be nice too. We don't have a policy. That was my first argument. Again, it's not fair.
No, going back to a couple of meetings ago, we actually turned that down. We turned that down and said, no, we think you should study this. That was the pilot. The pilot wasn't to get more. The pilot was actually, no, don't just Don't just close one tot lot and throw a bunch of money into another one to put stuff that you don't even know if anyone wants. Just study the whole system. Okay,
Jenny, do you want emails from us? Would that help you? I mean, not as a board, just as residents.
Well, I think you sent one describing the equipment, right? What you thought of it, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we forwarded that on. I don't think we ever got a response. No, I think, well, if you know somebody in Hickory Ridge that wants to write about
I
it.
do.
But, it's a Hickory Ridge Village Board's position, and it's the CA rep's been pushing it. So anyway, okay, we've talked about this enough, guys. Any questions you have about the e-scooter thing is moving ahead to explore?
Yeah, we never heard from them about our request to have it go over the bridge.
It's being looked at. Seriously, I'm sorry. My fault.
And now that they took the bike share away, it would be a great docking place to have e-scooters.
Yeah, no, that's all being worked on. The conditions that were the concerns when it first was being talked about and staff couldn't answer, have been met. We won't go over all those again. So it's now being looked at to expand. Yeah, I just assumed you guys had gotten something, or Warren's in touch with Jessica, meeting a lot. I just thought, I'm sorry.
They said it's the CA board that has to decide on the route.
No. It's all been worked out based on the conditions were met. So they're looking at expanding the routes. They've been looking at it for a month now. I'm sorry. And it's not just what you asked for. It's really looking at more than that. Because you lost the bikes.
Mhm.
Now, apparently one of the reasons the company, according to what I heard, said is just they didn't get the usage.
Well, they said that it's different technology and it's too much money to invest in the new technology to make it, I guess, worth their while. Right, Warren? Like
Right.
they're
3G.
phasing out the 3G and
Right.
to upgrade all the bikes and the technology. It was more money than this company or the county probably wanted to spend.
Yeah, but I also heard they were very disappointed in the ridership in Columbia. That's surprised me, but people have their own bikes.
Yeah.
Their ridership went way down during COVID.
Yeah, during
way,
COVID.
way down. It's starting to come back up, but it's mostly just around the Lake Kittamaqundi. That's where most of the rentals are.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you're right. It never was a huge thing because most people in Columbia that ride bikes have bikes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? So I'm sorry I didn't update you on that one sooner. That's my bad.
Yeah, I had no idea that was open.
It's open more than you had asked for. Okay.
That's cool.
And it's being worked on. We're not waiting on anything. It's being worked on. So, okay.
thanks, Ginny.
I'll be quick because I don't have a financial report. I took it off the updated agenda because the accountant is still working on it, but we'll have it for the next meeting. So, and I'll also start drafting a budget for next year once she gets back to me, so we know how much we've spent up in our 3 quarters. I've told the staff and for the public, I was following the county's lead with masks. So it's up to individuals. We don't have a mask requirement inside our building. I will continue to wear one because that's my personal choice. But if my staff chooses not to, that's fine with me. And the same with any guests that come in. Especially when I meet with the public, but even in the office, but I have my own personal reasons for wearing a mask right now. But in general, we're not going to have that. And my big thing now is I do need to hire more staff for our weekend rentals. And so really desperately looking for the right 2 individuals probably. And so I have posted on Indeed, which is a site that seems to be giving me the most applicants, and I have some Zoom set up first to kind of feel them out with Brigida, but that is something I really have to get done. And also, I don't know if you all heard this, but sadly, Jim Alvey's son, JT, passed away. It's public. He did commit suicide. He struggled with traumatic brain injury and substance abuse. And I mean, the Alveys and their family gave, as you know, support as much as anyone could possibly give. But that's really sad because Jim, you know, and his family have been active, and JT was actually as on our board as a teen rep. So that happened about 2 weeks ago. Passing that along. And
How old was he again?
he was 33. His obituary, there was a beautiful write-up in the flyer this past Thursday, and there's a long story about him in the Washington Post obituaries. His name was James Towney Albee. So it's really, really sad. And elections were, you know, our season is open for candidates. So the list of candidates will be published, sent to the candidates all first on March 11th or 12th. And I'm going to have an AED CPR training for the staff on March 16th in the evening, and just kind of gearing up for the rental season and elections and plant sale. So that's what's going on.
Stan, I have maybe a suggestion for hiring is that because you're so close to Howard Community College, you could try.
I tried. I spent like an hour on the site, and I don't think it even went through. If you have any help.
Was it through Handshake or was it through something else?
No, it was through it directed me somewhere else, and then I couldn't even choose the college after filling out everything. It was very frustrating.
I'll send over what I can because
Oh, that'd be great.
there too. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Sandy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, committee reports, Lynn?
No more from me. I've talked a lot tonight.
Okay. Oh, good. Yeah, no properties tonight. All right. Let's see. Next committee is me. Okay, two things. One, I delivered the testimony at the planning board last Thursday night. I hate the way the planning board does things because instead of like every other organization taking testimony up front, they make you sit through all the staff presentations and then the testimony starts. So I think the testimony started at about 8:30, and I was behind some people who don't want to park. But eventually we got that in, and several members of the planning board actually did specifically, speak about the needs of Oakland Mills High School, and keeping that in the capital, the county executive's capital plan as a high priority project. So that's taken care of, and then on to the next step as we get further into the budget season. Although nothing is up for funding this, for fiscal 23, we still want everything to stay in the plans. There was something being shared around social media that was apparently, I hate using this term, but fake news. So if you heard anything about a bus driver with a bus full of students parking at our village center and then going into the liquor store to buy a pint, that is not what happened. A resident saw this and actually contacted the Office of Transportation and found out that wasn't true. I saw all this on social media after I signed off from work today. My concern was that this was on social media, and while our resident found out this wasn't true, I didn't see anything from the Office of Transportation or the school system, to the community saying, hey, you may have heard, but this isn't what happened. So I actually sent something to the director of the Office of Transportation saying, look, I heard there was a rumor this happened in the community. I heard you already investigated and found out it's not true. but what are you going to do to communicate to the families in the school system so that they know that this was not true and they can feel safe, in trusting their kids to the drivers on these school buses, that someone's not driving around drunk with their kids in the bus. So unfortunately, I sent that after hours. He probably won't see it until he comes back to work tomorrow morning, but I'm hoping there's going to be more to it than just, telling individuals who happen to inquire about it, no, it's not true, no worries. Once this gets out there, the school system needs to get ahead of it and make sure that the public can have confidence in their transportation system. So that was an interesting little thing today. I don't quite understand how this became a story or what the motivation was, from the person behind the story, but I actually went to the original source and looked at the video and the pictures and the language and everything. And the whole thing made absolutely no sense once I read it, because basically the story was, I spotted this bus full of students at the Village Center. The bus driver was in the liquor store getting a pint. I confronted him. He basically told me what I could go do to myself. I didn't video that part, right? Why would you not video the confrontation? That's the evidence you would want. And then instead of immediately calling the police and staying on site to say, hey, this bus driver is about to drive off drunk with a bunch of students, this person just went to a school. I don't even know what school. And I don't even know how they knew what school that bus belonged to. I guess they just picked a school in Oakland Mills and went. And then the next step was to apparently contact WBAL TV. So like at no point in any of this did the person reporting this do the responsible thing and, try to get the police to stop this bus from going anywhere. Well, it turns out the bus didn't need to be stopped because the driver wasn't drinking and there were no kids on the bus. So very, very odd story today. And the only reason I'm telling this was there was, a legitimate video of a bus at the Oakland Mills Village Center and of a driver coming back out of the Village Center toward the bus. Apparently, from what I've heard, he just went in to buy a lottery ticket because he had an empty bus. He was between runs.
Right.
So anyway, that's if you hear anything about that, if you get concerns from anyone, no, there was not a bus driver parking a full bus at our Village Center to go in and get his beverages to handle the ride home.
But not the wisest decision on the part of the bus driver, however, to park the bus there and go into a liquor store. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, hey, look, appearances do matter.
Visuals,
Actually,
yeah.
if you look at the video, you can't even necessarily tell he's coming out of the liquor store. He's parked, over on that side, kind of in front of where the Dunkin' Donuts is. So he's coming from that direction. I can't even tell you that he's, actually coming from the liquor store. He could have been running into LA Mart, and it's hard to get parking by LA Mart and the ice rink. The other end of the lot is where you can fit a bus. So
I've seen buses in the lot. I mean, they're that park in that lot.
Yeah, I mean, I see school buses, in the middle of the day, I see school buses all over the place because the drivers, if they're not doing a field trip run or they're between bus runs, they go and get a bite to eat or they run an errand or something. They don't just sit in the bus all day at the depot waiting for the next run.
But wait a minute, didn't you say that a person, whoever this was, said that the bus driver actually came out with liquor or saw him in there with liquor?
No. Well,
No. Well, the person who reported this claims that he went in, he bought a pint and he hid it under his coat and came out with it hidden under his coat.
All right, so I mean, it's not just a lottery ticket. He's saying there was more than that. He should have been calling the police right away then, or
yeah,
Exactly.
but whatever he said was a fabrication because he also said the bus was filled with students and it was an empty bus. So
Yes.
So who is this person? We don't know who it is.
We don't know.
Or?
no, and then it was posted on some site in Howard County of, parents who like to get up in arms over things.
Wow, I mean, it's just weird. The whole thing's weird. I mean, who
it's
is the
very-
person?
it's-
And what was the intent is what I'm trying to figure out.
I
I
can't
don't know.
figure it out either. Yeah, I have no idea. I have my theories, but I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, what I don't like is here we go again, Oakland Mills, you know?
Well, yeah, redistricting, it'll
Well,
show up.
yeah, that's part of my theory, because that's coming again, because we're opening a new
Yeah,
high school.
yeah.
And, and the poster, made
They'll
sure to
save
point
it.
out that
Mhm.
I was in the Oakland Mills School District.
Yeah,
know.
Oakland Mills School District.
Don't even know that that was a bus serving an Oakland Mills school. That bus could have been serving any school in the county, and maybe, our village center is his favorite village center to visit. Who knows? But yeah, I saw this in the Oakland Mills School District. And I guess I just randomly picked a school to go visit after I saw it, not even knowing whether that bus was doing a run for that school. Because, there are only 4 schools within walking distance of the village center. Go in any direction, you're going to hit one of them. I guess maybe, figured a 25% chance is a decent, I don't know. But yeah, that was all interesting. But anyway, if you hear anything from anyone, no, it wasn't true. And I did send something to the director of the Office of Transportation saying, hey, what are you going to do to make sure that people know this wasn't true? Because the last time I saw, that thing had been shared 14 times. So, it's probably spreading throughout Howard County. That's all on that. Warren, public space.
Public space. Well, as we all talked about, Oakland Mills will lose their bike share on the 24th of February. And I think all the bike shares will be gone by the 28th. I mentioned a snow shoveling C-Click Fix campaign. I talked to Bob was at our meeting, and he mentioned that Chris Jagarapu would love that information, and he would love to have that to see that happen. Of course, we just need snow. The last thing to talk about is the Lake Elkhorn Watershed Restoration Project. We've got a lot of emails about how that was that's a bad thing from a couple individuals. So we talked at length at the meeting, and Bob made some points, and we all made some other points that really weren't in the letters we got from people against the project. The first one is this first step is just a means of financing. That's really all they're working at right now. It's not, the actual project has not been fully planned yet. So that's important to know. The next one is, although some trees will be removed because of the proximity to the CA paths along the whole stream, the equipment will not have to take out a lot of trees for this project, because they can get access through the CA paths. Now, the bad news is some of these paths will have to be closed for a little while they're doing the project. And that's one of my favorite paths that goes along there. So, but that's really good news, I think. Another one is, Bob mentioned, is there's a real threat. He's talked to a couple of meteorologists about this. There's a threat of an Ellicott City-like flood at Lake Elkhorn Dam if we don't do something like this to keep more water in Lake Elkhorn, because that acts as a buffer to protect the dam. And as it silts up, it becomes more and more likely that it would overflow the dam. So of course, this is all contingent on there being another big storm like we had with the 2 Ellicott City floods, that kind of thing. The last one is we saw many trees have already been lost due to extensive erosion. You'll see those, like I see it down the street in the stream. There's a tree that's basically lying in the stream, but that's all along the whole stream area. The banks have gotten so badly eroded that many of the trees are already being lost. So the longer we wait, the more trees we will lose from that. And that's about it. I can forward you some other stories that, some other testimony people have had. There was a letter in the Sun, somebody from Long Reach wrote, that's pretty powerful, describing the impact of the erosion and the problems and the threat we have to not doing something, some kind of remediation. Any questions? Yes,
Thank you for that.
Jenny.
Yeah, excellent testimony. Just a comment or question on the meteorologist that you were talking to. Lou Cellini used to be head of the Weather Bureau at NOAA. He was on TV. He just retired. He was on TV a lot. And he sat in on the climate vulnerability study that CA had done under the Climate Advisory Committee. And he said the thing that was missing was we were not dealing with heat at all, rising temperatures. He said we totally ignored it in that study. So I asked him, and he presented a couple of times, but in the chat room, and it still sensed that it was being ignored, quite frankly, the impact on our ponds, our lakes, et cetera. And I asked him to present to the climate committee, which he did, and he did an excellent job. And I'm really hoping that he and Tim and those will be involved, and that we can add, when we do next steps on this vulnerability study, we can add this to it, because I think it has to be. He's actually saying, and I thought this is what you were maybe were referring to, that we can have tsunamis on our lakes with the heating issue. And I know that sounds weird, but he thinks that is serious, and we really need to pay attention to that.
Really? Tsunamis on our lakes?
That's
Wow.
that was his testimony at the thing. This is a very intelligent, very bright guy, very calm, cool, and collected. He's, you know, just well respected. So he lives in Stevens Forest, and I'm really hoping he'll be involved with the climate committee so we can look at what he's talking about. And if we don't have, if the consultants that CA hired didn't cover this area, and it is crucial that we cover it, that this will be in the next steps. It's the way I look at it.
Interesting.
And the other issue about the whole controversy over from High Tor Hill to Lake Elkhorn, the dredging, et cetera. The problem that some of the CA board members are having and the community's having is, are you correct in that they will be able to play a role in the design? I've been trying to get it. Definitely, yes, they will have, people will have a say. It'll be public. I will be fighting, if I'm around then, for CA board to have a public meeting on that. And then we can, you know, comment on the area that's being covered, et cetera. But there are some, I think what they're afraid of, the opposition is afraid of, is once this is locked in with the Corps of Engineers, there will be no say about the area to be covered and how it will be done, et cetera. So that seems to be the difference. Yes, of course, it's about financing, and it's always nice to have somebody else pay, and we don't have enough money. We spent the whole board meeting talking about why CA doesn't have enough money for erosion. So if you can get the financing this way, we actually voted for a couple of years ago for the financing to have CA explore looking at this as potential, because this is a great way to finance something. We don't have what could be $10 million for this. But is it the right way to do it seems to be the argument. And you're getting letters, everybody's getting letters that are saying, yes, it is, and no, it isn't.
Right.
So I'm just hoping that when the sort of quote final designs made, that people will be able to have an input and discuss it. And that if necessary, or if everybody's in agreement or a lot are in agreement, that some changes can be made. I am not confident that that's true. I'm having trouble getting that answer.
So I think Lakey Boyd put out a letter about this, and she said that we would have several, that the public would have several chances to comment on it in the final stages. And Bob also said that that was true. And also John McCoy mentioned that as well, that there would be opportunities to comment on that.
Well, I think what you all have to do and make sure happens is that it's done in one, it's done, and two, that it's in a timely fashion.
Right, I agree.
Not this, oh, February 23rd is the deadline. The Corps has extended it and that's it. And therefore you can't have a board hearing on it. We've run out of time. So, I mean, it's really, that those are important things, I think.
No, I agree. I agree.
So
And
anytime
that's-
you want to meet Lua Uccellini, let me know.
Okay. Thanks. That's all I've got tonight. And it is 9:15.
All right, thanks, Warren. Let's quickly go through the bulletin board. Amy, anything from the office?
I don't think so, no.
All right, Sandy,
No.
Jen,
Not for me.
Ginny,
Nope, thank you.
Rebecca,
Nope.
Warren,
Good night.
Good night. Nothing.
Lynn,
Nothing, good night.
Bill.
Nope.
All right, well, I have one ask of everyone. Obviously, we have something, a couple of very time-sensitive things. As soon as we finish the meeting, I'm going to put together that poll for potential ad hoc meeting times tomorrow evening or Thursday, because obviously we have to wait until after the deadline we're giving CA to respond to our letter. And the other thing I'm going to send is a very short and sweet draft of what I'd like Amy or Sandy, whoever's available tomorrow, to turn into a letter to send to CA tomorrow morning. So, you know, unless you have any substantive edits, just give it a read through so that, you know, we all know that we've seen it. But please respond to that poll as soon as you can so we can get something scheduled, because we will have to announce it publicly as an open meeting. So try not to sign off until you see those emails from me. And I will promise that they will both go out before, let's say, 10.
Happy birthday, Jill. I hope you get to spend a little time with your family.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And we
All
are
right.
adjourned. Good
Night.
night.
Thank you. Good night.
Night, everybody.